So welcome on the Evolve Fitness podcast. Today we have Thom Evans again. It's the second podcast together, like podcast episode together. And the last time we talked about PEDs and how to start PEDs and enhancement. Today we are going to talk about nutrition and more specifically nutrition for hypertrophy performances, which is linked anyway. So I really wanted to have to get your take on it because it's a very broad topic, but also very interesting and many things to talk about. So we'll talk about like general principles, general guidelines. And I think the first thing we can talk about is meal plan versus meal, like flexible dieting. So one which is very rigid with meals planned, like meal one, meal two, meal three, everything is the same every single day. And the other one is more like flexible, where you just have calories and macros and you pick your food yourself. So what do you think about that? Like meal plan versus flexible dieting for nutrition, hypertrophy, bodybuilding?
Yeah, so normally that's going to come down to whether the individual actually really cares about food. So somebody who likes their food to taste good, is interested in cooking, and perhaps has skills in the kitchen, will probably do better with a certain amount of flexibility in their diet. And what I find with that tends to come with education. So understanding macros and calories. So tracking is really important with beginners, up to the point where they have a reasonable understanding of what is on the plate in front of them. And what's quite interesting is that there's a few cool studies out there where they take like trained individuals who track their food and just sedentary individuals, obese, who really don't eat with any kind of thought. And they just kind of put some brain monitor on them, and they sit them in front of a plate of food. And the trained individuals, their front brain lights up. So they're analyzing what's on their plate in front of them without really consciously even knowing they're doing it. Right? They don't have a list of what's in front of them, but they're analyzing that plate of food. And the sedentary obese individuals, the food is put in front of them and nothing happens. Nothing happens. They just they don't. There's no education there. There's no stimulus. So already trained individuals, after a certain amount of education, they're informing themselves about what's in front of them, and they're making these informed decisions and about food all of the time. And that can also lead to food pathologies. They can't relax when a plate of food is put in front of them and just enjoy it. So we come back to like tracking, meal planning, calories, what's important. So, okay, calories is really kind of number one. And since we're in the context of physique development, we'll need an appropriate amount of protein from quality protein sources. And I'm going to go out there and upset people that are vegan and vegetarian and pescatarian and things like that, because you need a variety of animal and fish protein sources every day. So you're going to need a variety of animal proteins, potentially fish proteins, eggs, and dairy.
Yeah.
You are going to need that. That would be optimal. Okay, now let's say I don't like eggs, fine, no big deal. All right, but eating chicken, meals 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is a recipe for food fatigue, for one. But also, I mean, it's not sustainable. It's not nutritionally dense. It's not ideal. For any viewers watching rather than listening, this is Mr. Charlie, who's West Highland White Area, and is currently interested in my attentions because I'm on a podcast, and he will call me as soon as I stop. Yes, that's okay, Mark. That's okay. You can sit down now. You can sit down.
So cute.
So, okay, how heavy you are, you're going to need a certain amount of protein, and that can be kind of individual preference, right? I would go with like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yeah, I think it's rough. Like it's a good quantity to start with. Like after you can also go a bit higher, depends on your carb intake, because in your carb sources you have some proteins, but less, like not as good quality as in meat or source like from animal sources.
So I don't track any
Okay.
of my protein from carbohydrate sources, plant sources. I
Okay.
only from animal and fish and dairy protein sources.
Okay.
I think we can put
Yeah.
dairy into animals. So let's just say animal and fish from now on, and that covers eggs and dairy as well. So
Okay.
so those are my complete protein sources. And there's a wide variety within that. So let's talk about a varied day of protein. I'm going to start off, depending on how I'm managing fats. Let's say, and we'll use my diet at the moment as just a good typical example. I'll use 2 whole eggs and 8 egg whites as my main protein source for meal one. Then I'll train. And then I'll use a whey protein source with milk. Surprisingly, milk's the devil. No, I can actually use lactose-free milk, but I'm not lactose intolerant. I also eat Greek yogurt later in the day, which is not lactose-free. But there's a certain amount of lactase that my body's going to produce without causing me like digestive issues because I've gone above that threshold. So where I can, I'll pick a lactose-free item, and lactose-free milk's readily available here. So now I've got 3 protein sources in already. Okay, I've got whey, I've got milk, I've got whole eggs. I've also got egg whites, but it's kind of the same thing. You could also put whey and milk in the same kind of bracket, but you've got whey and casein within that. Then we'll move on to like my more like substantial meals. So I'll use chicken for the next meal, and then I'll use ground steak for the next meal. I don't prefer to chew, to be honest. Very few of my meals involve chewing at this point. And I finish the day with Greek yogurt. I also substitute the beef meal for salmon about 3 times a week.
Okay.
And then off plan, you know, typically my go-to would be sushi.
Yeah. And you have 1 off plan meal a week?
No, I have as many as I want.
Okay.
So typically that beef meal is a larger meal. So that's where I have probably around about 200 grams of carbohydrates, around about 60 grams of protein, because it's steak. And for the protein amount, that probably gives me round about 20 to 25 grams of fat to play with. There's pretty much nothing that you can't go out and eat mindfully.
Yeah.
It's not going to match those calories. It's going to make no difference as long as I'm eating it from a digestible, high quality source. So that could be pad thai.
Yeah.
A lot of this would be homemade meals. So I'm a big fan of substituting in home cooked meals where you are following a meal plan. Could be meal 1, 2, 3, and 4 are fixed because that fits your routine and you're not bothered. And then evening meal could be where you get variety. And Greek bed could be standard, Greek yogurt, fruit and honey, something like that. I'm a big fan of that because all you need to do there to really make it work is just go, well, I'm going to have like a fistful of my high quality protein source. I'm going to have my similar size. Basically, if you take 100 grams of a carbohydrate source, dry weight, oats, rice, noodles, potatoes probably a little bit different, but they're all going to come in at a similar calorie amount, about 400 per 100 gram dry weight. Maybe a little bit different in terms of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, but it's not going to be significant in your day.
For sure, yeah.
Then can be varied. Do you add a condiment? So as long as you've got the cooking skills here, you can probably have a staple, which for me is like ground steak burgers that I make. That's my typical beef meal. But then that could be substituted in for like shrimp and egg noodle stir fry with a sauce. That could be very straightforward. We could go out and order sushi. Very easy. So this is giving me a certain amount of variety with my evening meals.
Yeah. Okay. And like for your clients, would you preferentially give a flexible diet with calories and macros, or would you go for meal plans, or like it's according to them what they want, what they ask you?
Yeah, so because I speak to my clients on a one-to-one basis each week, and we have that kind of initial consultation, my actual nutritional programming has some different windows to it. So number one, their macros add up to a calorie total. So first of all, that's your number one priority, that you hit those. And then there's your protein target. So those two are kind of a non-negotiable. You need to come within 5% of those numbers. Then they've got their carbohydrate and fat targets. Now, my serious competitors, these really become non-negotiable, especially in preparation.
Yeah.
And again, for more serious competitors or performance athletes that I work with, they'll also have a rest day macro setups. They'll have training day and rest day macros. And typically with bodybuilding, with physique athletes, the only difference there is the peri-workout nutrition, which is carbohydrate based. There's no real need to deploy proteins peri-workout. You can. There's no real need to do that. The only evidence for supporting training performance comes from deployment of carbohydrates around that training window.
Yeah.
So on a simple level, for a simple lifestyle client that's into bodybuilding, they have something like a Gatorade on training days, and they simply don't have that on rest days. That would be the only difference in their macros.
Okay.
Then they'll have the macros laid out alongside example meals. And then they'll tend to be quite consistent. If they're on 200 grams of protein and 5 meals, I'll split it up like 40 grams of protein across 5 servings. If they're on 400 grams of carbohydrates, again, across 5 meals, I'll split that up 80 grams all the way through. And if they've got 50 grams of fats to play with, which is quite typical with the enhanced athletes that will run low fats and high carbs, split like 10 grams there. And then they've got their Gatorade or whatever. So very simple. And I'll give them an example meal. So if they really just want to follow the meal plan and not think about macros or tracking whatsoever, they can.
Okay.
If they want to make the meals their own within those macros, they can as well. So they can work in different ways. And because we have a weekly conversation, their level of education will go up over time. So cooking skills is something that once cooking skills kind of improve and kitchen equipment improves, so air fryer, egg pan, this is not the frying pan you cook everything else in. This is a different pan only exclusively used for eggs so they don't stick. Maybe a rice cooker, a kettle, a blender, possibly a microwave, depending. Not really for cooking, but if they are that busy that they have to pre-prepare meats and things like that, sometimes it's easier for them to just ping it in the microwave and reheat. But I would say essentials are probably a good dual air fryer, like a 10-liter one. Omelette pan, kettle, blender, and a rice cooker. That'd be probably all you need for physique. And if you're lucky enough to have a well-equipped kitchen, you can have some more gadgets and things like that. But any starches, like potatoes and things like that, you'll be able to use your air fryer for. Any proteins in the air fryer, it's the cleanest, quickest, and probably best way to cook anything from steak to salmon to chicken. You know, if it's not coming out outright, it's simply because you've not got the temperature and the timing right. So some basic tools there, and do we use some seasonings and some condiments and things like that? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Like you can do whatever for condiments. They're basically calorie free. So
yeah.
Because like it's a topic many bodybuilders like IFBB pros and old school bodybuilders are saying that you cannot compete if you're not following a meal plan, because only meal plan can bring you this competitive physique. And I don't really agree. Like, I did my prep flexible diet. I always did flexible diet and it works well for me. And I think you can compete and reach a great level with flexible dieting. Like, if you have the knowledge and know how to choose your food and good quality, nutritious food, I think it can be like even better than meal plan for some. And as you said, it brings you the education about food and nutrition. Like
Yeah,
for my clients, like I give them mostly flexible dieting because they learn so much about food, what they contain, macros, calories, and then they have like this ability to just follow the diet wherever they are. Doesn't matter, they can just follow the diet, and like because they have the knowledge to do it.
yeah. My weighing scales come out purely if I want to cook rice. And that's simply because I want the right ratio of rice to water and salt. That's it. That's all I use my weighing scales for. Because my chicken comes in a packet. It weighs a certain amount. I eat the packet.
Oh, yeah. So easy.
All right. If my beef comes in a bigger packet and I want, I'll just fix my meals so that I eat, half a packet. So whatever is at my grocery store, essentially, I've got cartons of egg whites. The reason why I eat 8 egg whites is because that's half a carton.
Yeah, so easy to weigh. Like
Absolutely. Like, let's not overcomplicate things, right?
Yeah.
So make it straightforward and simple to execute. And then what I would say would be that when you're in the off season, if you're eating with a wide variety, that's going to allow you to move into prep with a wide variety.
Yeah.
But trying to introduce a whole bunch of new foods. So let's say you were lazy in your off season, you just didn't eat your vegetables. You're going to have a hard time introducing a wide variety of vegetables as soon as you start prep and you get hungry, because your digestion is just not going to be used to it.
For sure, yeah.
So when we're eating all year round, we need to focus on like what principles are best for gut health. So this is where we kind of get into like, what carbohydrate sources should we be focusing on? And I kind of think of it like a food pyramid, but for physique development. So what's one of my priorities, my biggest priority, my baseline of my diet? I need a wide variety of vegetables, unless I have some form of autoimmune issue, which means that I'm intolerant to some or many vegetables. But for most people, that's going to be the baseline platform. So is there a variety of vegetables going in with most meals where it makes sense? Like, breakfast is a bit of a tricky one, because I think emotionally we all have an expectation of what breakfast looks like. So maybe an omelette would suit vegetables, but a lot of breakfast items suit fruits better.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, let's say we're going to get 10 a day. That can come from fruits, it come from vegetables. Doesn't really matter if it's predominantly fruit or predominantly vegetables. This is really down to preference, digestibility, and what's important. But from here, we're getting your micronutrients and a wide variety of fiber sources. So not just one or two different fiber sources, but a wide variety. And then the next level up of where we deploy carbohydrates is going to be from whole grain sources. So again, we're getting that wide variety of different fiber sources. So a simple way to look at that is, let's put starches in there rather than in the vegetable column, but let's talk about maybe like potato, sweet potato. We've got brown, black, and red rice options. We've got oatmeal, and we've got a variety of brown bread options. There's also some cereals that may be appropriate as well. Like, I use a product called Weetabix here.
Yeah. It's full of fibers.
Yeah. This is my staple breakfast. I prefer it to oatmeal. Digests easier for me. Okay, cool. So now we've got pretty much our gut health covered. And on top of that, then we need to probably focus on our variety of animal proteins. And from that, we're going to get a certain amount of quality fats from your eggs, from your beef, from your salmon. And then probably the tip of that pyramid is going to be your added fats. Oil, maybe some nut butters or nuts, if you like, perhaps some avocado or coconut oil, but natural fats, healthy fats and complementary fats. And that's going to be a fairly small proportion of your calories for a physique athlete, because we just don't use a lot of fats. It's not optimal for training performance or for your physique.
Okay.
So you've got this kind of pyramid like that. So these are the kind of principles with which we build out a diet. We build it up and we build it down depending on the goal. So let's say that's my baseline and it's digesting well and I'm maintaining calories well on that. But I now need more food to support my training performance. My training performance is stalled in the gym, and while my body composition is good, my weight isn't increasing. But my digestion is more or less at its capacity in terms of fiber. So what we might do there is we might add in white carbohydrates. So that's where we'll start deploying white breads and white rice. Very simple and easy. And when I say white rice, this could be rice-based cereals, rice cakes, anything like that. It's going to digest easy. We might also find that because of that additional food volume, some of our whole grain carbohydrate sources drop off. So let's say that I was eating black rice, I'll swap that to white rice. You know, and that can be a transition. You know, we don't have to go overnight. There's no aggression with any kind of calorie increases when you're a physique athlete. We don't bump by 500 calories. If we want to improve training performance and maintain body composition, we're probably looking at 10 to 25 gram increases on your meal plan per week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Body composition holds. Now, what happens if training performance improves with that carbohydrate bump, but your body weight doesn't change? Well, probably you've seen a body composition improvement. I would bump carbohydrates again.
Yeah.
Until weight's trending up at a very gentle rate of loss. Maybe 250 grams of body weight a week. Half a pound, something like that. That's in line with protein accretion rather than body fat accretion. Yeah, slow and progressively. Yeah. So your protein's pretty fixed and your fats are pretty fixed, and your carbs are what's going to go up and down depending on your goal, and your carb sources are going to vary just depending on digestive tolerance, really. So let's go the other way down. So I've got now my nice baseline, and I'm looking at, I want to drop a bit of body fat. So protein's non-negotiable. My allocated healthy fats are at their minimum and are non-negotiable. My vegetables and fruits can say are non-negotiable for now. So I'm going to look at that quantity of whole grain carbohydrates, and I'm just going to pull that down and get weight down. And how that might look at the back end of a prep for a bikini girl might be that you're eating a variety of very lean protein sources because you need to manage fats down. You're eating no whole grain carbohydrate sources. And you're eating a whole bunch of fibrous green vegetables. If you're lucky, there'll be some fruits in there.
Luckily, yeah. But if you're like 900 calories at the end, it's mostly like proteins, like chicken and veggies, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's unsustainable, nor will it support training performance.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So then probably when we're looking at training, our expectations need to change from, are we training? You'd basically be overreaching if you were doing anything more than maintenance training volumes. So really we want to just pull back to what's going to maintain the muscle mass and look for expenditure via fat oxidation through other methods, which is going to be NEAT and probably low intensity cardio.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
Okay.
the reason why we choose those cardio options is because high intensity cardio will then compromise training performance. Even within maintenance volumes, we want a good quality training performance.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's adding less fatigue. Like heat is very, very fatiguing. And at the end of prep, I think it's a bad idea because training has to be the priority here. And your like reserves of energy has to be used for training and not for heat cardio.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about enhanced athletes, we're using a variety of fat mobilizing drugs. We don't want to be in a glucose intensive state while
Yep.
doing those. So the majority of our day, we want to be as far away from glucose intensive activity as possible. But then when we train, that is going to be glucose intensive. So what carbohydrate stores we've got, what glycogen stores we've got, what available blood glucose needs to go into that training session. So I've done it before where I've been, near enough zero carb, let's say carb just from vegetables. But around my training window, because it's glucose intensive, I would deploy like a sports drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for hypertrophy purposes, this doesn't need to be a high amount. Probably 25 to 35 grams of glucose is going to be plenty to sustain you for a 60-minute session.
Yeah, for sure. If you train more, maybe an intra workout could be interesting, but we'll talk about that later. First of all, I wanted to ask you something about macros, because you talked about building your diet and food selection, about protein intake. You said 1 gram per pound, which is about 2 grams per kilogram. And you prefer, yeah, it's about something like that. And then you prefer high carb, low fat. But can you explain a bit more like the science, I would say, behind why high carb, low fat is better for bodybuilding?
Oh, just simply that carbohydrates sustain training performance.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Your fat requirements are for cognitive function and as a natural bodybuilder for hormonal function.
So like what would be the amount of fats you would use for a bodybuilding diet? Like gram per kilogram or
Natural.
gram per pound? Natural and enhanced both.
I mean, I would still keep it pretty low, but you'd probably be looking at probably like 0.3 grams per, let's say per pound body weight.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a 200-pound athlete on 60 grams of fat.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And protein, we're talking about that gram per pound. So they're on 200 protein, 60 fat. And now the negotiable is going to be the carbohydrate, and that's going to be directly in line with the current body composition goal. But for the majority of the time, that should be enough to drive training performance and not more.
Okay.
All right. So let's say I start with an athlete who's got good body composition. This is very easy. If I start with an athlete who has poor body composition in the off season, so they come to me and they're like, I want to compete this year, and they're fat. So we're going to need to first put them in a position where they lose that body fat. So now we've lost time in terms of putting the best ever physique on stage. So what's very, very important is when the athlete moves out of competition or decides they want to prep, is to assess that body composition and put the timeline together appropriately. So if an athlete comes to me and their body fat is too high and they say they want to compete this year, I would say we're doing it in 2 years' time. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take off that body fat so that you're lean enough to support training performance, because too low body fat levels will not support good training performance.
For sure.
But that they are then able to respond to those incremental bumps in carbohydrate without losing body composition.
Okay.
If an athlete comes to me and they're very lean, then we're going to slowly increase carbohydrates over time until training performance is good. And then we'll probably hold it there and maybe gently improve carbohydrates. What I also do with a lot of females is I program them for, let's say, medium intensity week, medium hard, and then hard. And then the week that they get their period, we do an easy week. And the carbohydrate macros for the easy week will be lower. And we'd also manage fluid and sodium in that week, and magnesium as well. Just so females, it's maybe a little bit different to males. Males can be a little bit more linear and consistent. But in general, the athletes that have a good body composition to begin with will be increasing carbohydrates wherever body composition improves or training performance declines. Because we don't get too lean.
Yeah, would you cycle carbohydrates along the week, like according to workouts, for example, high days on leg day or stuff like that?
No.
You keep it steady?
Not particularly. For one, I don't see the reason why you can't deploy frequency more effectively. So why should leg day be so taxing? Because you're trying to do 30 sets. Because you've decided that your volume landmarks for legs needs to be around 30 sets a week. Why the fuck would you do that in one go? And then you need to eat to support that. This is not smart. Just do 2 leg days of 15 sets each.
Yeah. So steady amount of calories and carbs along the week.
Yeah, generally speaking. And then, you know, like I said, on rest days, we'll probably pull those peri-workout carbs because they're not needed.
Yeah, for sure. But like it's mostly steady.
Yeah. But then with athletes in other sports where they might be training twice a day, 3 to 6 hours a day, on those training days, the body's stressed. You've also got time constraints. Then we might use rest days as a refeed. And there we might deploy a lot of carbohydrates. And probably some additional fats because the calorie demands are so high. So the rules change a little bit when we move away from sort of like just the physique development goal. And whenever someone comes to you and they've got like 2 goals that don't really marry, like I love doing jujitsu 3 nights a week. And I also want to have a bodybuilding physique. That's harder to feed.
Yeah, for sure. And like for peri-workout nutrition, what would be your general guidelines for pre-workout, intra-workout potentially, and post-workout?
So something volume-wise that's digestible prior to training so that you don't train with the feeling that you have food in your stomach. So that needs to be portion controlled. I would say there that we'd be looking at a lower GI carb, or at least a mixed meal, depending on the carb demand, right? Because we have to also consider fiber. And you might add some fat to that meal. So something really simple would be like pick a protein source that's easily digestible, egg whites maybe, eggs for the fat content could be, or if you prefer to use something like nut butter, then you leave the eggs behind. And then maybe oatmeal is a classic, right? Okay, but that could also be 2 chicken breast sandwiches with salad and mayonnaise.
When would you eat your meal before the workout? Like 2 hours before, 1 hour before?
Depends on how much food the athlete has to get in, but I would say about 60 minutes before is absolutely fine. I probably wouldn't eat less than 60 minutes before. And more than 90 minutes, I think that you're approaching being sort of a very stable blood glucose level. You'd be in the fasted range going to do glucose intensive activity, which is okay, but then you might need to deploy intra-workout nutrition.
Okay. Because like I found that if I put some fat in my pre-workout, I just have my meal still in my stomach when I train, because I eat like about 1 hour before. And for me, like fats is not really working well, but for sure, like the idea of having fat is a good idea because you can slow down a bit digestion and have a steady amount of glucose in your blood, like glycemia.
Yeah, but let's be clear on the quantity there. When we're talking about deploying 0.3 grams per pound, you're probably talking about 10 fats in that pre-workout meal.
Yeah.
So it's not a huge amount. And in your case, that doesn't sit well, so you just don't deploy it. So it's individual dependent.
Absolutely.
The general rule of thumb. Intra-workout, I would keep it super simple and just take a glucose-based drink.
Okay. And would you drink electrolytes during your workout?
Not necessarily. Depends on how hot it is and how much I'm sweating. But yeah, I mean, why not just take a Gatorade?
And what about EAAs, BCAAs, intra-workout? Because I've seen many people doing that, and I don't think it's really interesting to do it.
So your amino acid pool is saturated from the gram of protein per pound that you're eating non-stop, right?
Yeah.
So what is that? So, okay, I understand these hyperemia theories, like the blood is being, everything in the blood is being transported to the muscle. This is not working like this. I'm sorry. I do not believe that it works like this. It's not proven in any sense.
I agree.
For athletic performance, you need 10 to 25 grams of glucose. That's it. Even in Olympic athletes training for 3 hours straight, high intensity weight training, they might get through maximum. I mean, this is top end, 200 grams of glucose to support that. All right, that's probably not just very sustainable in terms. That's not a very nice intra-workout drink, and will probably put significant digestive stress on the individual. So then I would tend to have them train, if it's possible, I'd probably have them train after 2 or 3 meals, and then make the intra-workout manageable. And then post-workout, just keep it simple. Let's just do whey protein and rice milk.
Okay.
Really straightforward. Rice milk has got a whole bunch of carbs in it. You've got your whey protein there. It goes down nice and easy. Is there a real time frame where that matters? I mean, I'll probably get it in within an hour of training. And then approximately an hour later, I'd probably be looking at getting a whole foods meal. And
because like the anabolic window is scientifically proven 6 hours post training, but maybe it's a good, like a big stretch to go for like 6 hours having a meal after training. Like, but within 3 hours, 2 hours after training, I think it's quite okay. If you can have it earlier on, as you say, like 1 hour after or 30 minutes after is better, but you can have a meal like 2 hours after and it's fine.
Yeah, it's just about consistent nutrition going in at regular intervals throughout the day. When it comes to bodybuilding, that's going to be between 4 and 8 meals probably.
Oh yeah, so let's switch on meal frequencies. And like, do you have a specific time between meals, like every 3 hours you eat a meal, or are you like more flexible about meal timing and meal frequency?
Yeah, I mean, you need to reflect the lifestyle of the individual, right? So the way my days are fairly busy, and I tend to backload. So in the evening, I start my wind down, and I'll tend to finish the day with 2 quite large meals. I don't have much to do, much to move around, and so I can afford to kind of sit around and digest. With other clients, then they might just eat with like probably similar volumes of meals at regular intervals, and I put that between the 2 and 3 hour mark for most people to get enough food in through the day without digestive distress.
Okay.
All right. And we also need to factor in proximity to sleep, right? Whether we're doing fasted cardio because we're using fat mobilizing drugs. So often in prep, while you're on lower food, digestive distress can be higher because we've got this kind of smaller window to fit in our allocated amounts of food. So excessive fasting periods are probably not that helpful for training performance as well. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
although
depending when you train.
yeah, it can be an appetite management technique, but I would say, look, if you're going to do use fat mobilizing drugs and a fasted window, I think 2 hours is sufficient. From wake up, you're doing your morning routine, so you're already doing neat. Go for a walk, come back, shower or whatever, have your breakfast.
Yeah,
As simple as that. Because if you got up at 6 a.m. now, your first meal's probably coming somewhere between 8 and 9 a.m. already. And if you're getting up at 6 a.m., your bedtime needs to be about 9. So we now got like a 12 to 13 hour window to eat anywhere between 4 and 8 meals.
Oh, you would go to like 8 meals a day?
For me, I will get to 8 meals a day because I'm a hard
Okay.
gainer and I've got to get through 1,200 carbs. So then,
Yeah.
then it's going to look like get up in the morning and probably get my first easy meal in, then get on with my morning routine, and then probably get my proper breakfast. You might get up and you might do again like a rice milk based shake or something like that, and then you get into maybe some solid food meals. Like again, volume of food's going to get quite high, so you've maybe only got 1 or 2 whole food meals that you can get in before training without it affecting training performance, and then the meals thereafter. So if I've got an athlete that is on like fairly low calories, fairly low food volumes, maybe just split up 4 times a day, the meal frequency reasonably would be what, 3 to 4 hours?
Yeah.
And if you've got an athlete like myself at peak off season, meal frequency is probably going to be about every 2 hours. And they'd better be very, like I said, I'm going to eat every single one of those meals with a spoon and nothing's going to be chewed.
But don't you think it would help to chew a bit more, to have like more, like smaller pieces and easily digestible?
The point is that the meals are so soft and digestible.
You can just like,
You wouldn't need to chew.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get it.
And actually this becomes problematic when I then move away from that and I get into dieting and I start eating like steaks and nuts and things like that. And I realize like I have like zero kind of like during, so I'm trying to get through 25 grams of raw almonds and I'm like I'm getting jaw ache.
Oh,
you
have muscle atrophy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, chewing, of course, is going to help digestion if the food needs to be chewed.
For sure.
Just chunking it down whole. I just pick soft food sources. So ground beef and rice, Weetabix, egg whites, salmon. Fish is always like quite easy. Chicken's pretty easy, to be honest, as long as you don't overcook it.
Yeah.
Greek yogurt and skyr, they're very, very easy protein sources. Shakes are always very easy to get down. So as I say, there's a context there for meal frequency, but 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, and as you go up with calories and you have to manage hunger, like the absence of hunger, you switch to more like liquid soft food, as you said, because it's easier to eat, it's just easily digestible, and it's not like a big chunk of food. So it's a good thing also for people with low appetite to manage it better. It's just like switch to like soft food and liquid.
Yeah, I mean, what I might do is, although like a protein shake is not going to be particularly high in carb, so let's say I use 500 milliliters of rice milk and 2 scoops of whey, I'm probably going to get 60 protein and 50 carb. But the fundamental thing is I've got around about 20% of my protein in very, very easily. And I could deploy that shake 2 more times that day. So 60% of my protein has come from very easy digesting sources. And then let's maybe throw in a 500 gram Greek yogurt, because I need 300 grams of protein a day. So now, and that's going to have, Yeah, I know that. So now I'm probably up around the kind of like 75% mark before I've even touched something like meat. So throw in some eggs and egg whites. Okay, we're pretty much there. We might only have one meat-based meal, but there's a whole lot of like white rice-based products going on in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's say my serving of meat there might only be like 150 grams in that day. So we can also manipulate protein sources. So I might want denser protein sources when dieting. For say,
Yeah, because you need to manage hunger, which is very high.
Yeah. I mean, as much as you can, you've got to accept it at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was doing something which was not really smart at the end of prep, because I was at like 1,000 calories, and my thing was to just fast in the morning, and I was training fasted at the time because I had classes and stuff, so I couldn't train like in the afternoon. And I was training fasted. I was still able to train quite well and maintain my strength, but like then I was just fasting a lot and eating only proteins and veggies, and it was not really good, like 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day max. And I've seen like many athletes doing like 4 or 5 meals even at the end of prep a day. And I was just like, because for me my hunger is very very high all the time, and I was wondering like how can they just manage to eat like 4 or 5 very very small meals, because for me I need big amounts, big volumes.
Yeah.
And like yeah, for hunger management I think it can, like sometimes it can be a good thing to switch a bit and maybe go a bit further from optimal things, because like at least I was able to just be consistent with my diet and still train well and still like feel okay, because I had big meals with a lot of veggies, instead of doing like bodybuilding every 2 hours, having a very small meals with like three berries and 2 pieces of chicken. Like
no. Yeah, I mean, really, we can't. The last 4 weeks of any kind of prep, we really need to get away from, although we want to maintain the same sort of principles of we need quality protein, we need micronutrients, we need fiber, as far as possible within that calorie intake, we're probably not going to be able to do anything for training performance. So then it comes down to preference in terms of appetite management.
Yeah, like it will suck at one point, and like if doing 2 or 3 meals a day works better than doing 5 extremely small meals, at the end of prep it doesn't really matter, because anyway your goal is not to gain muscle, it's to just to maintain a bit your muscle mass and lose fat, and that's it. Like just go through it. So
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so general rule of thumb with meal frequency is every 2 to 4 hours. And, for the general person looking to get in shape and develop their physique, I'm thinking your plate's going to look like a quality animal protein source, a whole grain carbohydrates, some servings of vegetables, and maybe finish the meal with fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. And no need to do crazy stuff, because I've seen like protocols from big prep coaches, and I feel like they are overcomplicated everything, maybe to like look very smart and look very knowledgeable, but like they are cycling everything, like calorie cycling with high days, medium day, and low days. And like it's meal plans with weird stuff, like weird quantities, and like I feel it's a bit too much, and it's not really like mandatory to reach a competitive level.
Well, I think beyond that, it's actually deleterious. So it's going to exacerbate food. Not only is it not necessary, it's going to exacerbate food pathologies. It's going to get monotonous. You're going to be endlessly like weighing out, measuring, but you're going to attach importance to tracking that's not necessary. It's just necessary. I mean, you don't even need to track in prep if you are in a fixed meal plan. Like your tracking is this: I have 4 pieces of this, I have one of those, like,
Yeah.
it really, if you have sufficient muscle mass, then minutia will not matter. If you do not have
Yeah.
sufficient muscle mass, you should not be doing a bodybuilding prep.
Oh, for sure. And many are doing this mistake.
And that's why it's hard and it fucks them up.
Yeah, because they have to be like to go through like crazy preps because they don't have enough muscle mass. So like losing fat is not enough to get this crispy look. So they still like try to lose, but there is nothing to show like under the fat cover. So
No.
this is a problem.
You'll ultimately end up presenting a somewhat soft, not particularly detailed physique, and it's not going to flow. You just don't have the muscle there to do it. So, depending on your genetics, you're probably looking, let's say you decide to take up bodybuilding seriously and you're going to eat well and train hard and look after your sleep and do this consistently. Do it for at least 4 years before you think about competition.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even more, like depending on your category, like bikini, maybe 4 years is fine. But like figure or women's physique or classic physique, bodybuilding, you need more time.
Oh, for open bodybuilding, you might be talking about, it depends on your genetics, but anything up to 20 years to be at the highest level. There's a reason why the open pros at the Olympia are in their 40s.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of time.
Yeah, you'll get the odd freak, but that's because they have this unique trifecta of a crazy response to hypertrophy stimulus, a crazy anabolic response to relatively small amounts of food, and an insane response to anabolics in relatively small doses. And when you get that trifecta, you get someone like Ramy, who looked all right, and then he's a 340-pound monster inside 3 years.
Yeah, but I heard like off drug, it looks completely different.
Yeah.
Like he's really hyper responsive to drugs, but when he removes drug, he's like another person, like completely different.
Sure. He's taking 6 months off doing anything before he even looked getting ready I think he got ready for the last Olympia in 16 weeks or something.
It's absolutely insane, like seriously.
Yeah. So, these are all things that we need to consider. Like when we've got these like complicated drug protocols, feeding protocols, that's not going to overcome your structure and genetics. You have that or you don't. So bodybuilding should be fun. It should be a lifestyle. You should be living your greatest life in the body you love. So are we eating well at every meal? Are we having great training performance? Do we feel good? And if there's a body composition issue to begin with, i.e. the body fat is too high, then that's probably the toughest part, because you need to diet that down to a position where you can then enjoy bodybuilding. Bodybuilding should be simply that you look good naked, you have great training sessions, and you eat really well.
Yeah.
You have no food pathologies because you eat well. Your appetite is good for every meal, but you're also satisfied, There's no binging, there's no overeating. And if you go out for a restaurant meal and you overeat a little bit, probably what will happen is you'll auto-regulate the next day and you'll eat a little bit less, because your body should know how to auto-regulate. We do studies in rats in the 1950s and they didn't have processed foods available to them. They really struggled to actually get rats obese. It wasn't worth the effort. They just couldn't force feed them enough to get them obese on whole food sources. Well, once they started giving them like ice cream and cereals and stuff like that, they get super obese in no time.
It's very easy.
So take a lean physique, feed it whole foods on a regular basis with an appropriate training model. There's lots of inappropriate training models out there. But let's say we want to train for hypertrophy. This is specificity. We're not doing 5 rep maxes. We're not fucking around with HIIT training or anything like that. Let's get back to the fundamentals of what some people will find that their entire body responds to HIIT training. Most people will find that only very few of their body parts will respond to low volume training.
Yeah.
And the majority of people then are going to need between 8 and 16 sets per body part per week in the 10 to 20 rep range. This is going to be the most efficient. It's that
Absolutely.
simple. And you
Yeah.
need to feed them appropriately for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And would you like make a difference between nutrition for enhanced athletes and natural athletes? Or do you think it's the same?
I think the fundamentals are the same until you start deploying analog insulin,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
which I generally wouldn't.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, only in
generally,
specific cases.
yeah, you'd need an athlete there that has a very structured eating pattern, and a very, very structured routine to start deploying insulin as a performance enhancing drug. Now,
Yeah.
using a baseline or background insulin when an athlete is on very high carbs is simply managing them as if they're already a type 2 diabetic.
Hmm.
And that's a little bit different. So in that case, it's simply the carbs have got high and their pancreas needs support. But if we're going to use insulin as a performance enhancing drug around the peri-workout window, then it becomes a little bit different. So that's the only difference between natural athletes and enhanced athletes, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to nutritional programming.
Yeah, because like some people are saying that you should increase your fat intake as a natural to support hormonal production. Instead of just like enhanced athletes, we can just keep fats pretty low because they have drugs to support hormonal function. So
I
it's just something
agree. Cognitive function would still decline on very low fats. So living your greatest life. So I agree that in prep, a enhanced or at least hormonally supported athlete can get away with pulling their fats lower. Cognitive function will still decline, but this might be necessary. And then we're talking about a trade-off there between, are we deploying carbohydrates for training performance, or are we deploying fats for cognitive performance? And what is the demand in their life? Like now for me, I need a certain amount of cognitive function to do my job. But if I'm a professional bodybuilder who is paid like well enough that I can be like pretty much vegetative all day, I don't have family commitments, I'm single, then I could probably pull my fats down really, really low and deploy those calories for carbohydrates for training performance. So we do need to kind of reflect lifestyle demands or just life demands when we talk about manipulating fats in enhanced athletes. In natural athletes, I would not go below that 0.3 gram per pound. I also wouldn't typically go above it.
Yeah, like for me in kilograms, I use between like 0.4 is a very minimum, and usually it's between 0.4 and 0.6 gram per kilogram. So it's about 0.3 gram per pound, like 0.6, 0.3, it's about the same. So yeah, I totally agree with this amount of fat. I think it's enough for hormonal production and just like cell membrane synthesis and stuff like that, like just function of lipids in the body.
Yeah, there's plenty of evidence to support that as well. So,
yeah, you don't need more. So like just allocate as much calories as you can for carbs.
yeah, so I think that's probably deployment of macros covered reasonably well. And also the principles of how to eat for hypertrophy is very, very simple.
Yeah, let's recap a bit.
Micronutrients and a wide variety of fiber sources. They start off by coming from your fruits and your vegetables. All right, maybe about 10 different items per day. This is not that complicated, right? Go to the shop and buy a fruit pot that you've got about 5 different fruit items in it in one. Okay.
Yeah.
Go and buy a pack of stir-fry vegetables. All right. Now we've got a wide variety of micronutrients and different fiber sources from different vegetables and fruits. Pretty easy. Let's talk about then about getting some different fiber sources from whole grain carbohydrates and let's say we use oatmeal, black rice, and brown bread in the day. Why not? Why not? Then on top of that, we're going to add our variety of protein sources. So, okay, let's do eggs, beef, chicken, and salmon, and whey protein and yogurt. Nice and easy. You don't have to have all of these every day as well, you know, but it doesn't have these requirements. It's just important that there's variety across the week, shall we say. And then on top of that, we're going to add any additional healthy fats that we aren't getting from our animal, fish, eggs, dairy. What I like to do is use low-fat dairy so that I can have fats that I enjoy elsewhere.
Yeah.
So I'd rather take 0-fat Greek yogurt and add almond butter to it than eat 10% fat Greek yogurt.
Yeah, I agree.
Preference. There's also, in terms of like fatty acid profile, there's benefits there as well. And what your food eats as well is important, you know. So I'm not really worried about what my chicken ate because it's pretty much fat-free muscle. I'm very interested in what the chicken ate in terms of the eggs, because this is going to make a huge difference to the fatty acid profile. I'm very interested in where my fish was sourced, if it's an oily fish. I don't really care if it's a white fish. I'm quite interested in whether my steak was grass-fed. So we're always looking for a favorable fatty acid content. So I tend to invest more in my animal proteins that contain fats.
Yeah, to have good quality fats, because fats are pretty low for the amount of fat. So it has to be like high quality.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. So for meal frequency, you said like depends for sure on like the conditions of the person, but like between 3 and 8 meals, depending on where you're at. And then for macros, what should you think of macros? Like just quantities, like
let's just
per
do
pound or per kilogram?
1 gram a pound protein. We'll do 0.3 grams per pound fats, and then carbohydrates as required to support training performance.
Good. And no calorie cycling, no carb cycling?
I wouldn't be aggressive with that. Literally, do they need a sports drink on training day or not? In most cases, for lifestyle clients, not. And even in more advanced physique athletes, I very rarely deploy aggressive peri-workout nutrition. You have to have a big boy on insulin to have a peri-workout protocol.
Okay, good. I think we touched on many subjects, so I think we can wrap up this episode on that.
Yeah.
Complete.
And we can talk a little bit about free meals.
Oh yeah, let's touch on. Yeah,
pretty good topic, because what typically happens is that bodybuilders will follow a very restrictive and boring meal plan for majority of the week, and then they'll be given a free meal, a cheat meal. And what this does is it elevates, can we say, high reward foods that should really be considered punishment foods. They're going to trash your GI, they're going to create inflammation, and they're going to do your body no favors. So pizza and ice cream, really typical one. Burger and fries and a milkshake, really typical ones. So all we're doing here is we're topping up our calories with crap. And the only reason we're doing that is we're not eating well through the week. So I am a big fan of home cooked free meals. I'm also a big fan of high quality restaurant meals. And I think that if you're eating with the principles that I described throughout the week, there'll be absolutely zero desire to go to town on a McDonald's or some similar degree of junk food. All right. And we need to differentiate between what is quality restaurant food, and what is junk. Okay, so let's talk about a takeaway pizza of around 3,000 calories, full of maybe in America trans fats, but certainly like vegetable oils and things like this, are highly inflammatory fats, also sugars and things like that are going to really kind of wreak havoc with your blood glucose and your sleep quality as a result, digestive stress, and so on. So, however, what we might do is we might get a high quality restaurant pizza that comes in at around about 1,000 calories. All right, nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Have a gelato afterwards, 2 scoops, high quality gelato. No problem. This is a nice free meal while you're out. Go and eat sushi. All right. You don't need to go to the all you can eat sushi. You don't need to order 48 different rolls, order 12. This is a perfectly satisfying portion, So if you're restricting through the week, you're banking calories to allow you to eat a load of crap. You've got it all twisted the wrong way round. And if you see junk foods as reward, you need to reevaluate your eating pattern.
Yeah, clearly.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody offers you McDonald's, right? You should consider this a punishment, not a reward. And this is set up often from childhood, and there's lots that goes into it. There's lots of reward pathways formed through the hypothalamus with processed combinations of fat and sugar that we need to be aware of as athletes. So why you have to ask yourself a question, why am I craving foods that are not in line with my goals, that aren't palatable beyond the first few bites, that cause severe digestive distress, give me night sweats because of the blood glucose is elevated, fatigue in the morning as a result? And does that lend anything to training performance? And the answer is no.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Now, if I needed 3,000 calories to top up, like I would do a big day of high quality foods. And yes, I might add some additional fats. I might add some dark chocolate in there. I'll add quality fats if I want to add those calories. I don't want them all from carbs. But I mean, I would just swap out my lean beef for a ribeye steak, and I might and I might enjoy some oven fries or something like that, or why not have a high quality ice cream? All you have to do is look at the back of your ice cream and look at the ingredients, and if it says on it high fructose corn syrup, put it back. All right, this was created with the sole intention of making cows as fat as possible, as quickly as possible, and somehow it's been approved for human consumption.
Yeah, and also go for it.
Well, why don't we go and pick an organic, high quality ice cream or gelato, where the ingredients are dairy, sugar, and what else? Whatever.
Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah.
Very, very simple, fruit or chocolate or whatever it is that's added to it. Yeah. So that's going to be digestible. It's not going to create digestive inflammation. It's calorie dense, and that's okay sometimes, but we want to make sure that those calorie dense meals are digestible. And a great way to do that is to cook them yourself or go to a restaurant that you have confidence in.
Yeah, and also I found like eating a whole food diet, very nutritious with good sources, well, you don't really crave junk food anymore. Like if I want a burger, I want very high quality burger. I don't want a McDonald's burger. I want like a good steak, which is not too fat and good quality. Like I really want good things. I like, you can crave burgers, but good quality burgers.
Yeah. And simply put, you should be able to eat to satiation and stop.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you feel compelled to finish food when your stomach is already at capacity, something is wrong.
Your post show.
Okay.
It's post show, yeah.
All right, and it can be a variety of food pathologies, but generally your appetite regulating hormones are skewed, and you're eating a high reward food. So I mean, a good example of that is the use of flavor enhancers like MSG that encourage you to overeat,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never feel good after that. Nothing wrong with MSG. It's just salt. It's a flavor enhancer, but in the context of physique development, it wouldn't be ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I think we touched on everything now, like free meals, meal plan, flexible dieting, frequency, post, pre, intra workouts, macros. So I think it was quite complete for this one. Do you have any other things to add?
Just you just need to keep it simple. You just need to keep it simple. Just keep eating high quality mixed meals and training for hypertrophy, and you'll get the results that you want to get. Overcomplicating it takes the fun out of it, and therefore the sustainability. How should you train? In the manner which you enjoy, that doesn't overly tax you, that's recoverable. You can train with the frequency and the volumes required to actually build your physique. So bodybuilding is supposed to be fun. This is my overall summary. Bodybuilding is supposed to be fun. And the fitness industry, as supplement industry as well, has just pushed that right out the board, because you've got all these different training strategies which aren't always in line with what's optimal for hypertrophy. Simply stimulus to fatigue ratios are poor. You've got all these different sort of like methods of eating that they're unnecessary, they're restrictive, they're complicated, they create food pathologies. So just thinking about like a good quality plate of food, probably 4 or 5 times a day for most people, getting in the gym, training for hypertrophy, and just enjoying your life and getting on with the rest of it.
Yeah, and like counting calories and macros is important if you want to reach a certain point, certain physique, and to progress. Because like if you have no notion about nutrition and you're not tracking anything and you're just like going with the flow with how you feel, it can also impede on your progression.
Yeah, you need to learn, but at some point you need to accept that you've got enough knowledge to eyeball your food and either maintain or grow or diet until we get into those very, very extreme ends of a push-up or a diet where, and again, like the tracking there can just be as simple as portion control.
Yeah, but also depend on your appetite and on like many different things. Like I feel like some people can just do it like that and not tracking and just eyeballing things and it works out. But for some people, they need to have some structure to be sure like they're hitting their macros and everything well. At least if you want to like go far in the sport and be competitive, an athlete, or you have like very specific physique goal, I think like tracking can be a very, very good tool, especially for people who are not like at this level of knowledge about nutrition and are not like ready to really just eyeball and just go like that.
Yeah. So invest in your nutritional education up to the point where you don't need to fucking weigh and measure everything and have it dominate your life. It's as simple as that. Because there are people living their lives that they fucking understand nutrition. They're still weighing out everything, cutting bits off a chicken breast. So it's, if you buy a kilo of chicken and it's got 4 chicken breasts in it, that's it. You've got 4 servings of chicken. I'm not going to cut that up into 250 gram portions. It's going to make no difference whatsoever. So, just be a bit chill. Be a bit chill, because it doesn't make a difference. Your amino acid pool is full. If you're eating well, your carbohydrate pool is full. You deplete it with training and you refill it. And your fats are enough to support cognitive and hormonal function. And if you have a blood test or something like that and your hormone levels are down and your fats are pretty low, then you might want to consider tweaking them up. But those general numbers that we gave you are a pretty good start point for building out your baseline diet. And actually, if anyone goes on my Instagram, which is at Thom.Evans.ifbb, I've put together a principles of eating for hypertrophy food pyramid. So you can just go and look at that, and you can just start to write your meal plan from there.
Perfect. Yeah, I will put your Instagram in the description of the episode so people can contact you for coaching or consultations. And yeah, they can find many good information on your Instagram. So reach out to Thom.
And I have to shout out my sponsor, Retro Muscle. Absolutely awesome products. Fantastic ethical company as well. They really support their athletes, and no shady shit going on in the background. So I do have a code for that. Again, it's my name, THOM. So if you do want to try their products, they're giving out free samples as well this week. But you can get 20% off anything with that code. So, and the clothing's cool as well. So
yeah, I've seen that. It's pretty cool.
They look after me, man. They look after me.
That's great.
They allow me to do what I do.
That's great. Yeah, I've seen the clothing. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's banging. Yeah.
Really, yeah, I really like it too.
I'll get you a hoodie or two.
Oh yeah, for sure. And are they shipping like worldwide, or it's only UK?
Yeah, no, they're doing worldwide. As far as I can see, they're doing US and European shipping right now. Oh. So yeah, that's all. That's also, it's all going well. Yeah, I'm not sure. Different EU countries have got different agreements with the UK right now for shipping. So whether you pay charges or not, I think there's only like 4 or 5 countries left where there's even an issue. So yeah, it's something that you should check anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll check their pre-workouts and stuff like that next time I'll order.
Yeah.
Good. So that's a wrap. Thanks again for this discussion about nutrition, and see you in the next episode.